Professor Dr. Govinda Raj Pokhrel, Vice Chair, Nepal Planning Commission, and the chief guest of today. Co-organizer of the conference, Dr. Krishna Chandra Paudel, Secretary of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Government of Nepal. Dr. David Molden, Director General, ICIMOD. Dr. Eklavya Sharma, Director, Program Operations, ICIMOD. Mr. Nanda Kishore Agrawal, Conference Convener and Coordinator of Himalayan Climate Change Adaptation Program. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, representatives of partner organizations of ICIMOD, media friends, ICIMOD colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, a very warm welcome to all. I'm Naina Shakya, Partnership Specialist, Strategic Cooperation at ICIMOD, and it's a great privilege for me to serve as MC for this important event today. Shared evidence-based scientific knowledge, boost awareness and engagement, foster partnerships for action, dear ladies and gentlemen, are the main objectives of the International Conference on Mountain People Adapting to Change, Solutions Beyond Boundaries, Bridging Science, Policy, and Practice, for which we are gathered here today. Thank you all for being a part of yet another important milestone in the services of ICIMOD for the mountain and people. We are truly privileged by the presence of so many eminent dignitaries here today for this inauguration. This conference, which is co-organized by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Government of Nepal, is a collaborative initiative. We at ICIMOD are also very grateful to all for your participation in one of our major activities, as we have been celebrating 30 years of dedication to the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. To begin the inauguration program, may I please request Dr. David Molden, Director General of ICIMOD, to deliver the welcome address. May we please have a big round of applause, please.
Okay. Chief guest, Vice Chair of the National Planning Commission, and also ICIMOD board member, Govinda Raj Pokhrel, members of Parliament from regional member countries, ambassadors, our co-organizer, the Secretary of Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Nepal, Krishna Chandra Paudel, representatives of the governments of Nepal and other government officials, local and international participants, altogether 270 registered participants from 22 different countries around the world, including 8 ICIMOD regional member countries, ICIMOD partners, media participants, colleagues and friends, namaste, and welcome all of you to ICIMOD. And thank you all for joining us and spending your time and energy focusing on the topic of mountain people and adaptation. First of all, let's think a little bit why mountains. And I just want to have you picture a map of our region, the Hindu Kush Himalayas. And that starts from the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan, goes to Pakistan where the Karakoram, the Hindu Kush and the Himalayas meet. And the Himalayan arch then stretches across India, Nepal, Bhutan, clear to Myanmar. It also includes the Tibetan Plateau, which covers vast areas in China and other countries, and also includes associated hills, including the Chittagong Hill Tracts of Bangladesh. And all of the countries I mentioned are the regional member countries of ICIMOD. The Hindu Kush Himalayan mountains are the resource base for the 210 million people of the mountains, but also provide services downstream to about 1.3 billion people in 10 major river basins. If we think about the food and energy produced in this area, it also reaches about 3 to 4 billion people who indirectly depend on the mountain areas. Mountains are a place of incredible diversity. 4 of the world's major global biodiversity hotspots are in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Indeed, our future food security will depend on the agricultural diversity hidden in the many valleys of these mountain areas. There's also an incredible diversity of people. We had one study recording over 1,000 different living languages in the region. And if we think about the varying environments and ecosystems, and recognizing that mountain people have always adapted, we find that mountain people have already developed a huge diversity of options to adapt to numerous different mountain environments. And indeed, many of our solutions are already here in the mountains, and it seems that an easy win is just to share that knowledge across mountain areas, the local knowledge, the traditional knowledge, and even the scientific knowledge that we have gained. The Hindu Kush Himalayas are also known as the third pole, or the water towers of Asia. The glaciers hold about 6,000 cubic kilometers of water. By the way, that's enough water to irrigate the world for about 2 years. So a fantastic storehouse of water. There's huge energy potential in the mountains, but also a huge demand on that future energy. So we already see a lot of pressure on the resources to meet the demands of mountains and also downstream in the plains. So mountains are clearly a global resource, but in a sense we have inordinate expectations from the 210 mountain people and hill people who are in essence custodians of that resource. Mountain people are experiencing change at an unprecedented rate. Fragile mountain ecosystems, already with high rates of poverty, are highly vulnerable to climate change. We see and feel this change already with the impact on glaciers, with the impact on our ecosystems and agricultural systems and on livelihoods. But adding to climate change, we have other challenges. For example, air pollution that contributes to glacier melt and negatively impacts human health. And the growth of crops. The hazards of floods and droughts increases with changing water regimes. So in addition to climate change, there are other range of social and economic transformations, including globalization, market forces, urbanization, and in fact, unequal development, where the poor probably don't receive the attention that they need. One result is a large outmigration of mountain people, especially men from their rural homes. So this conference deals with change, not just climate change, but that interplay of all kinds of factors that mountain areas are witnessing. Change, though, brings about opportunities. If people are migrating, they're also sending back money and skills and bringing back home skills. So could we better tap into those human and financial resources while reducing the negative impacts of migration? With urbanization, there must be new and bigger markets for high-valued mountain products. And is there a better way to link rural mountain people with markets for their improved livelihoods? If mountains provide ecosystem services, isn't there a way to get people downstream to pay for those services? And can we put our best brains and technologies together to develop solutions? Those are some of the questions we have at this conference. By the way, today is the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I have to compliment our German friends in the audience. And I have a few questions for us. Can we dare to cross boundaries? Can we dare to cross boundaries between disciplines, between policy and practice, and between our countries to develop new and transformative knowledge? So in this conference, let's move beyond the description of the problems to putting our heads together to find solutions that will bring about positive and transformative change. A little bit about ICIMOD. ICIMOD stands, and you can see it on our building and cars, stands for Mountains and People. Our vision is that men, women, and children of the Hindu Kush Himalayas enjoy improved well-being in a healthy mountain environment. And essentially our mission is to contribute to that vision both through knowledge and regional cooperation. And it's through ideas, knowledge, innovation, partnership, and sharing that we make a difference. We bring together diverse stakeholders striving for more regional cooperation. In the recent IPCC report, it was recognized that the region is data deficit. And the good news is that we're filling these knowledge gaps already. And I'm pleased that people from this region here are generating the good knowledge that we need to move forward. And many of you are sitting in the audience today. But there is a critical concern, and that's how to make sure the knowledge is useful and being used. Thus, the sub-theme of the conference is bridging science with policy and practice. And a question I hope that the conference you grapple with is how to move science-based solutions into policy and how this knowledge can be made more useful for action. And action has to happen at all different scales. It has to be at the local community, it has to be at national level, at this regional level, as well as the globe. It's important also, especially with climate change, that we bring these messages to the global community. And the results of this meeting will be ones that we can use to feed in such processes such as the UN FCCC Convention, the Climate Change Convention. So what do we hope to gain from this conference? First, from our interactions, that we develop new understandings and ideas that will help us in the process of adapting to change. Second, we will find ways to ensure that knowledge products are effectively used in policy and practice. Third is that this event will help us to enhance networks and communities of practice so that after the event, we can still all work as a community dealing with these issues. And finally, that the messages that we deliver here today can also be taken to the global community. So let me end this by thanking, first of all, our regional member countries, our host country, our sponsors, the many sponsors of ICIMOD as well, who gave us the opportunity to host this event, and for your contributing support of ICIMOD. So thank you once again for coming, and I wish all of us a very productive few days. Thank you very much.
ICIMOD's interest in this conference and our continual services to the mountain and the people. It is indeed an important day for ICIMOD, and we take pride in our continual efforts with the cooperation from our partners and supporters. Much to my delight, may I cordially invite Dr. Krishna Chandra Paudil, Secretary of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Government of Nepal, the co-organizer of the conference, for his welcome address.
Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Chief guest of this important event, Honorable Vice Chairman of the National Planning Commission of Nepal, Honorable parliamentarians from the region, member of the ICIMOD Board of Governors, David Molden, my good friend, Director General of ICIMOD and his family, Excellencies from the Diplomatic Corps, conference speakers, distinguished delegates, media representative, ladies and gentlemen. As a co-organizer of the event, let me take this opportunity to extend our warm welcome to you all, the distinguished delegates coming from all over the world to this special international conference on mountain people adapting to change, solutions beyond boundaries, bridging science, policy and practice, being held here in historic city of Kathmandu. Allow me to express our sincere gratitude and warm welcome to the chief guest, Honorable Vice Chairman of National Planning Commission, for accepting our invitation and also for expecting at this end to be our chief guest of the occasion and for the grand opening of the conference, which will take place in a while. Gracious presence of high-level dignitaries itself signifies the importance of the subject we are discussing in this 4 days conference in Kathmandu. This is an exciting conference bringing together experts, policymakers, politicians, scientists, journalists and young professionals not only from the Hindu Kush Himalayan countries but also from many other countries around the world to discuss the climate change adaptation issues at the global level in general and in the mountains in particular. We, the organizers, consider this event as an opportunity for further learning, sharing and broadening our knowledge on the problems and opportunities of climate change in the mountain region, vis-a-vis developing common voice and platforms, as well developing simple and effective solutions to address the climate change challenges. I do hope that the outcome of this conference will contribute to climate change agenda of the SAARC summit to be held in Kathmandu this month and the 20th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change held in Lima, Peru early next month. As you all know, mountains are a special gift of nature. They are the towers of fresh water, a repository of high-value biological diversity, and unique ecological, cultural, and touristic destination on Earth. Mountains not only offer ecological goods and services to mountain communities, but also offer to the millions of inhabitants downstream. However, mountains also suffer the most from climate change, conflict, poverty, overexploitation of resources, and loss of biodiversity. Converting such challenges into opportunity is the role that policymakers, experts, and intellectuals like you can play. I wish August gathering like this will succeed to lead the process of saving mountains and Himalayas that save the life of millions in our planet. Distinguished delegates, Nepal is basically a mountainous country. Over 80% of our country land occupied by mountains. 8 out of 14 highest peaks on earth lies in Nepal, and our economy is significantly influenced by mountain resources such as water, forest, agriculture, tourism. Our national development policies, programs and approaches, that's why, are very much mountain focused. Nepal is a party to various conventions and treaties as well, including the desertification, climate change, biodiversity, Ramsar CITES, ITPGRA, etc. The government of Nepal has approved its Sustainable Mountain Development Strategy as back early 2002. We have set policies and institutional mechanisms to address the threats posed by climate change. The least developed countries, particularly the mountainous nations, are suffering most from the consequences of the climate change, although we contribute the least in global greenhouse gas emission. That's why we feel we must be extensively supported for the damage caused by the high greenhouse gas emitters. Developing countries must also be supported for technology transfer, capacity building to mitigate adverse impact of climate change, and adapting, including the building resilience. As a chair of the LDC group on climate change, we have been serving LDC countries as well, raising our voice through this forum in the international arena. With regards to climate change mitigation and adaptation, Nepal is implementing its climate change policy since 2011. Nepal is implementing most urgent and immediate adaptation needs as prioritized in Nepal's NAPA through LAPA framework, starting from most climate vulnerable 14 districts of mid and far western Nepal with support from DFID and the European Union. We are promoting community and ecosystem-based adaptation to help climate vulnerable people to adapt to and build resilience to climate change. The low carbon economic development strategy has been drafted and we have created a separate budget code for climate change. Realizing the sensitivity of the climate change, coordination mechanism has been established right from the local level to the highest political level. The Climate Change Council is chaired by the Right Honorable Prime Minister himself. Our efforts in localizing climate change adaptation are well received by the global community. We recently organized an international conference on community-based adaptation in April this year in Kathmandu, and recently we also organized a national conference on climate change and its impact in the high mountain areas, and it was organized as high up in the 3,000 meter above sea level in Rara in the far western development region. Back in 2012, Nepal hosted an international conference of mountain countries on climate change, and its outcome, the Kathmandu Call for Action, will guide our future course of action, and we would like to take up this process further ahead. Distinguished delegates, mountain communities have wealth of traditional knowledge. Intergenerational experience and wisdom of our communities in sustaining mountain farming system is the source of inspiration and hope to cope with changing climate. However, they must be supported for what they cannot do themselves. It may include policy, finance, technology, capacity building, and other enabling environment for uplifting them from poverty through providing access to energy, education, better health facilities, transportation, justice, human rights, etc. Learning from our NAPA and LAPA process, Nepal will soon be engaged in formulating the National Adaptation Plan to address medium and long-term adaptation needs of the country. As NAP will be prepared by developing countries and LDCs to address adaptation needs, I do encourage ICIMOD to support its member states in embarking the NAP process. I also encourage to generate and share local knowledge, piloting climate change adaptation activities at the community level. Now, adaptation actions should get investment rather than software programs as in the past. I am confident that this conference will be instrumental in shaping strategies for formulating the national adaptation plans. Climate change does not recognize the political boundaries. Therefore, the knowledge and experience shared by different Hindu Kush, Himalayan and other countries will be extremely crucial for developing newer understanding, new partnership, and also broader regional cooperation to develop and implement adaptation plans. In this context, I am extremely pleased to see a very high-level political and government representation from Hindu Kush, Himalayan region and other part of the world in this conference in Kathmandu. ICIMOD and Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment have been partnering for long. This partnership for a strategic cooperation for promoting the mountain agenda will continue in areas of our mutual interest. I would like to request you all to contribute actively to cover all the important aspects of adaptation issues in the mountains and contribute substantially to the common goal of putting mountain agenda high in the global discourse. At the end, I would like to thank the Chief Guest, Vice Chancellor of the Nepal National Planning Commission, and all the high-level dignitaries and delegates who have come from far-off places to share their expertise for the conference, and wish you all a pleasant stay in Nepal and a grand success for the conference. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Dr. Porel, for your welcome address. We take this opportunity to express our gratitude for the support for this conference and as we work jointly in the future for sustainable mountain development. I have the honor to cordially invite our chief guest, Professor Dr. Govinda Raj Pokhrel, Vice Chair of Nepal Planning Commission, to graciously inaugurate the conference by lighting the auspicious panas of the Nepali lamps. Dear ladies and gentlemen, may we have a big round of applause, please, as the conference inauguration ceremony is symbolically taking place. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to announce the opening of the conference on Mountain People Adapting to Change, Solutions Beyond Boundaries, Bridging Science, Policy and Practice. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Eklavya Sharma, Director, Program Operations, ICIMOD, to kindly share a few words about adaptation issues in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Govinda Raj Pokhrel, Vice Chair, National Planning Commission, Dr. Krishna Paurial, Secretary, Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, Dr. David Malden, Director General of ICIMOD, distinguished guests, eminent experts and personalities, participants of the conference, ICIMOD colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed, ICIMOD is honored with the response that we have received from all of you in organizing this international conference. You can see the level of participation coming from so many countries and covering the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. We have also just heard from Dr. David Malden on importance of mountains and the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. We now know mountains are hotspots for change. Globally, mountains occupy 24% of its terrestrial area. About 12% of global population live in mountains. 40% of global goods and services come from mountains. And half of humanity is catered by mountains. In spite of such contributions, mountains haven't received enough attention in global agendas and investment. So, through this conference, we would like to draw the attention of global community on the issues of sustainable mountain development and adaptation to change. It is evident that the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, which was very nicely elaborated by Dr. David Malden, is a treasure house of natural endowment and cultural heritage. The Hindu Kush Himalayan region expands over 4.3 million square kilometer area and is shared by 8 countries. And the region is also called as Water Towers of Asia. About 18% is covered by snow. Over 60,000 kilometers square is under glaciers. Already mentioned by Dr. Malden, 600,000 cubic kilometer of ice reserve that can irrigate Asia for 3 years and South Asia for 5 to 6 years. So it's huge amount of fresh water store that we have. This region is also known for its biodiversity. Globally, there are 34 global hotspots, and out of that, 4 hotspots are actually in this region. There is high endemism, means species that are only found in this region, and about 60 out of 200 global ecoregions are found in this region. So this means there is enormous richness of biodiversity and potential for this region. Already 45,000 species are reported from the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, and I can also say we are having really good agrobiodiversity. It's very rich. You can see in pockets a rich agrobiodiversity that caters to the food security of the people in this region. And this region is also cornucopia for cultural heritage, ethnicity, and sacredness. And already mentioned, I think more than 1,000 living languages are here. And this means there is a very strong link with the culture as well as environment which we see when we go to the villages and mountains and hills of this region. There are some major issues and drivers of change that need to be highlighted and need to be addressed, and I hope in this conference we would be looking into them. One is poverty, and we have seen that mountains are more poorer than the other areas. And there is a paradox, in spite of so much of richness of natural resources, why yet people are poor. I think we need to do a lot of work to see how we can convert the resources into more useful paying factors for the people who live in the mountains. There are big questions like compensation for ecosystem services for the benefit of mountain people. Inclusion of natural capital in national gross development product, which can actually bring benefit to the mountains in big countries like China, India, Pakistan. Then how to increase investment in mountains for sustainable development are areas, the questions that need to be asked, and I hope we will look into this during the conference. Some of the major drivers of change that we see in the mountains as well as in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region are climate change, land use cover change. We are seeing our multifunctional landscapes are being changed, infrastructure development, urbanization in mountains, globalization, and already mentioned out-migration, which are quite prevalent in this region. And when we think of any adaptation, we need to have a holistic approach. We cannot just have a sectoral approach in terms of adaptation. When we see climate change, the high altitude areas we see temperature rise is much higher there. Total precipitation is not likely to change, but the uncertainty on the seasonality and intensity of rainfall which we are seeing in this region is likely to be more and more increasing. So there needs to be a good science to see that how we can reduce this uncertainty. The permafrost melting is very, very important. And they are actually in high altitude areas. We are seeing vulnerabilities of debris flow and deposition on productive agriculture land downstreams, which are likely to increase in future. We are also seeing that in the region there is not enough mountain specific policies. We need to address adaptation only if we have a good mountain specific policies. So that needs to be brought into our planning. The issue of transboundary and common regional exchange or common regional issues are quite important, and institution like ICIMOD is mandated to work on these issues, and we feel that there are enormous potential to address this, like disaster risk reduction, trade, culture, scientific exchanges, local and regional capacities on various fields. I think there are so much of opportunities, and we need to use these opportunities also in adaptation related program. One of the major issues that is faced by the region is knowledge gap and data deficit. ICIMOD has started some regional initiatives in filling this gap. However, if you just recall the report from IPCC in 2007, this region was shown as a data deficit. And again, this year, yet another report comes, and this also very clearly, assessment report 5, it says the Himalayan region is still data poor. That means we need to do more and more. This brings the conviction that the ICIMOD as a regional center should do more, and we have started to work, and there is really a good work that needs to go to have a comparable, consistent, systematic and long-term data generation and monitoring, as well as analysis of what we get and fill the knowledge gap for this region. ICIMOD has developed river basin and transboundary landscape management approaches that supports the effort of filling this data gap. And we would like to see that this whole thing is done in a systematic way with the partners in a consistent way and in a long-term basis for this region. The knowledge is being generated through interdisciplinary regional programs within the core competence of ICIMOD on livelihoods, ecosystem services, water and air, and geospatial solutions, targeting adaptation to change, transboundary landscapes, river basins, cryosphere and atmosphere, mountain environmental regional information system, and Himalayan University Consortium. I am glad to tell you ICIMOD has taken another very important initiative with the partners in the region as well as outside. And this particular program is called Hindu Kush Himalayan Monitoring and Assessment Program, HIMAP. And this will be like mini IPCC report, and this will be the assessment very much focusing with a view of wide outreach targeting policymakers. So this is a very important initiative, and in this initiative issues like food, water, energy nexus and drivers of change is receiving a special attention. We have also seen that adaptation strategies would not work unless and until we connect science, policy and practice. So this is very, very important, and it was also mentioned by the Secretary of Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment that they would like to collaborate with ICIMOD on national adaptation plans. All our countries in this region are actually preparing national adaptation plans, and we certainly would like to target the implementation of adaptation strategy very specific to mountains and hills. I think we should remember this, unless and until we have, for Nepal it's more or less mountains, and hills, but when it goes to other countries, I think this is a very, very important point. We should have a focused view. All of us know that adaptation is not new. For generations, mountain communities have been adapting to change. The local knowledge of the communities are now not sufficient anymore because the adaptation and the rate of change has increased, so people cannot really adapt. So what is required is that the plans which we develop has to be quite robust, and it can be only robust if we combine the traditional and local knowledge systems with modern scientific knowledge for appropriate adaptation strategies and practices. Both ecosystem and community-based adaptations are important. We cannot use these two approaches separately. We have to come to bring this together in our national adaptation plans and target how we can link and converse these two approaches of community-based adaptation and ecosystem-based adaptation to have a successful adaptation strategy. This is what I think would be discussed in this conference. Community-based adaptation is quite important, and how we are going to address this. The first thing that we need to do is build the adaptive capacities of the communities. And also we need to reduce the vulnerabilities and risks of the people living in mountains and hills. And also those people who are living in downstreams. Upstream-downstream relation is quite important, and whatever happens in the mountains are going to be impacting on the downstreams. And if you look into the disaster-related adaptation, downstream people are much more vulnerable. So this is quite important topic I think will be discussed during the conference. Scenarios on precipitation for next 50 years so that there wouldn't be much change in absolute water availability in this region. Means more or less we get the same amount of rainfall. But what is going to be different is variation or variability in seasonality, and also the frequency of or the intensity of rain that we get. So frequent and intensified floods, too little water situations, drying up of springs, cropping pattern adjustments are some of the areas I think that needs special attention. So there could be a long, large list which I can say, but I was just trying to indicate agriculture, water use at the local level, as well as the floods are going to be quite important areas when we look into adaptation. Finally, when we look into the conference, I think conference broadly will be dwelling in three thematic pillars. One is adaptation science. So we have lots of participants who brings good science here. Then we also have a topic on adaptation policy and action. We also have many senior government officials here, including secretaries. Our board member from Bangladesh is also sitting here, who is the secretary of Chittagong Hill Tracts, and many, many senior people from all ICIMOD countries as well as outside. So we would certainly like to see adaptation related to policy and actions, both going together. And finally, the adaptation practice and solution. We also would like to see what we discuss as science and policy, how that could be put into solution and action on the ground. For that, we also have the new generation youth group who would be actually discussing in this conference. Finally, this conference aims to fill some of the gaps, knowledge gaps which I mentioned, and we hope that we will be able to come out with potential solutions to some of the key questions in the region. You will see in each of the sessions there are questions, and these questions are quite important. If we are able to come out with some good solutions for some of these questions, I think we achieve the goal of this conference. With this, I wish you all a very productive time during the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma, for the information on the significance of the conference and for stressing the importance of forging regional partnerships to enable change in the region. It gives me great pleasure once again to request Dr. Govinda Raj Pokhrel, Vice Chair, Nepal Planning Commission, and also member of ICIMOD Board of Governors, to please present his speech as the chief guest of this inaugural session.
Thank you. Honorable Member of the Parliament from the region, members of the ICIMOD, Board of Governors, Excellencies from different diplomatic missions, Dr. David Mullen, Director General of ICIMOD, representative from private sector, development partner, conference speakers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to convey best wishes from Right Honorable Prime Minister Sri Sushil Koirala, who could not join this inaugural session. As the Vice Chair of the National Planning Commission and on behalf of ICIMOD Board of Governors, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the International Conference on Mountain People Adapting to Change, Solutions Beyond Boundaries, Bridging Science, Policy and Practice. Around the same time last year, the National Planning Commission, together with ICIMOD, had organized the International Conference on Addressing Poverty and Vulnerability in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. It is heartening to see ICIMOD continuing with this tradition of organizing international conferences on very important global issues with a very clear focus on Hindu Kush Himalayas and in strong partnership with Government of Nepal and its institutions. As a member of ICIMOD Board of Governors, I am extremely pleased to see that ICIMOD has institutionalized such important knowledge sharing as annual events. This year's conference is an extremely important topic for us in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Adaptation to change, particularly the challenges arising from the climate change, extremely critical for the mountain people. Therefore, this conference is both timely and exciting as it is bringing together experts, policymakers, politicians, practitioners, journalists, and young professionals, not only from the Hindu Kush Himalayan countries, but also from many other countries in the world, to discuss the climate change adaptation issues in the mountains. Thus, I heard there are colleagues from 23 countries and around 117 guests are here in this conference. It is heartening to see ICIMOD is initiating, organizing international conference on globally concerned issues and their commendable efforts in bringing together all renowned scientists, senior policymakers and parliaments as well as grassroots practitioners working in the region. This conference reflects two important mandates of ICIMOD's mission: knowledge sharing and regional cooperation. As a member of the Board of Governors, I would like to commend the DG of ICIMOD and his team in organizing such events that contributes in achieving ICIMOD's goal. For Nepal, and particularly for the National Planning Commission, the conference offers a specific opportunity, in fact, an opportunity that is extremely timely. Nepal is embarking on preparation of National Adaptation Plan as highlighted by Secretary of Science, Technology and Environment. Spearheaded by our ministry, the conference with its focus on bridging science, policy and practice can offer us very important insights and learning that I understand will be the central focus on different sessions. The sharing of experiences from our neighbors and the deliberation that will take place in plenary sessions should give us good insights not only for our National Action Plan but also more importantly on how can we integrate adaptation into our regular development plans and policies, thereby enhancing adaptive capacities of our inhabitants and the mountain people in general. Yes, we are aiming to reduce the absolute poverty level, which is around 23% now. However, we have many mountains. We don't have to compete with others. We have Mount Everest, we have Manaslu, we have many such mountains. We don't have to compete with any neighbors. And we have energy, so many hydropower resources, and our mountains provide good sunshine for the solar energy, which is also, we don't have to compete with our big neighbors. And agriculture. Everything can be grown in Nepal, from Tarai to upper mountains. We have seen Rara, even in our neighboring hood of Rara, we can grow rice, different types of rice. So we don't have to compete with our neighbors. We can do ourselves if we can have good policies. But this T, in short term, these resources are very vulnerable to climate change. To address this climate change, I have a very short form solution. I call it ICE. We have to address infrastructure barriers, and we have to build the capacity of our people, institution, government and private sector, and also we have to empower and educate our human resource population. So with this short form of our ICE, we can have a sustainable solution in Nepal. If you see those targets, I mean, we need around 13 to 18 billion only in infrastructure sector, but around 100 billion US dollar by 2022 if we want to graduate from LDC to developing country. Part of that, major part of that, more than 2/3 of that should come from the private sector. In the past, when it was initiated to discuss about the climate change agenda was considered to be the environmentalist agenda or NGO's agenda or civil society's agenda. But I think it's now private sector's agenda because insurance cost is going up and they are losing lots of infrastructure. We have around 700 megawatt of hydropower, but around 10% of our hydropower installed capacity is not functioning for last few months because of the flood that happened in Shulkosi. So private sector is losing money. That's why to mobilize investment from private sector, we have to integrate the climate change agenda and issue while making policies that are going to attract private sector's investment in this region. Because in Bangladesh, every year they are losing money. In Kashmir, we saw that they also lost lots of infrastructure. Nepal, in 4 or 5 districts, we have huge damages caused by this landslide floods, which is partly due to the climate change. So climate change agenda is more important for the investors, private sectors and development planners rather than for scientists and NGOs or civil societies or environmentalists. That's why we need to incorporate this agenda by developing many policy instruments, tools, which can then address the vulnerability of those investment. So at the end, I would like to thank all the high-level dignitaries, experts and delegates who have come from far off places to share their expertise and the conference, and wish you all the pleasant stay in this beautiful land, Nepal, and a grand success for the conference. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pokhrel, for your remarks and enlightening us on ICE. We have been able to continue our work with the cooperation from our regional member country partners like the government of Nepal, which we are fortunate to have. May I now call upon Mr. Nandakishore Agrawal, conference convener and coordinator of Himalayan Climate Change Adaptation Program from ICIMOD, to please present the vote of thanks.
Honorable Vice Chair of National Planning Commission, dignitaries on the dais, members of Parliament from regional member countries, Excellencies, distinguished media delegates, invitees, ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues from ICIMOD. It gives me great pleasure to talk about the purpose and design of the conference and also to present the vote of thanks. But before I get into vote of thanks, I just briefly like to outline the purpose of this conference. It is aimed at contributing to addressing 3 core issues or challenges of climate change adaptation in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. First, enhance the scientific understanding and knowledge about the climate change adaptation issues. If you look at the IPCC report, there is very, very limited contribution of authors from the HKH region. This needs to change. So this conference will try to address that. Second, mountains have not got their justifiable share in not only in the global agenda but also in their own countries. And third, the mountain communities are rich in sustainable traditional knowledge and practices which are invaluable, particularly in the context of climate change. But these have been ignored for a long time. This needs to be brought up front, particularly for the action on adaptation. So accordingly, we have designed this conference covering 3 aspects: science, policy, and practice. The conference begins today with a very high-level leadership panel which will discuss managing change, challenges of translating knowledge into adaptation policy, and action in the mountain. several high-profile leaders of our countries will discuss how do we integrate science into policy and action. We hope that the panel will inspire all the participants to focus on findings and solutions beyond sectoral and political boundaries for bridging science policy and practice. Tomorrow, that is 10th November, there will be Science Day for the conference. In addition to discussing existing scientific knowledge and hardcore climate science, the day will also take up the challenge of bringing together different science streams, starting from climate modeling to science of disasters, food security, ecosystem management to the vulnerability assessment issues. Day after tomorrow, that is 11th November, there will be a policy day. Here, the conference will explore the challenges of connecting national adaptation programs with the local priorities and global agenda. On the third day, we will see a very interesting marketplace with innovative solutions from 20 young professionals selected out of 100 applicants. They will present their ideas of innovative solutions which can be implemented in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Finally, the 12th November will be the practice day, during which the conference will focus on the challenges for and lesson from the actions on the ground. At the end, we will again get the our high-level leaders to reflect on the conference recommendations and plan out a strategy through a panel discussion titled Getting Mountains on the Global Agenda, Mapping the Way Forward. The session will actually let all of us commit to something concrete for the mountains. So be prepared for your own commitment. The conference is designed in a very, very interactive way. We assure you that we will not let you suffer with long PowerPoint presentations. Each one of you will have opportunity to contribute to the sessions and in a very, very participatory way. There are 3 expected outcomes, key messages for the global community. Basically, to address why mountains are crucial not only for mountain communities, but also for the half of the world population. Then daily updates in the form of evening bulletins, live stream and videos for the world communities to take note of what's going on in the conference. And the third, publication in a selection of papers in a special issue so that we move towards contributing to IPCC. At the end, we hope that the conference will have some outcomes in the form of a call for action as a mountain-centric input to different global processes and also a collective lobbying of the mountainous countries to much needed and deserving share of mountains in the national and global agenda. Before I close, it is a privilege and great joy for me to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the conference organizing committee. What started with a very small idea 18 months ago has now resulted in a conference of this magnitude. Many individuals and institutions have contributed bringing conference to this stage. I just cannot thank them enough. I have to extend gratitude to and appreciation to those who have been prominent in this start. First of all, a Right Honorable Prime Minister who could not come due to certain emergencies, but nevertheless he accepted to grace the occasion, and that gives us a boost to really raise the bar of the occasion. Second, Dr. Govindraj Pokhrel, Vice Chair of National Planning Commission and our Chief Guest for today, for not only accepting to the grace occasion as a Chief Guest at a very, very short notice, literally short notice or without any notice, and also talking as a Chief Guest. Sir, we truly enjoyed your speech and also the concept of ICE. Then to the Government of Nepal, particularly to the Ministry of Science and Technology for being co-organizer of the conference. Dr. Krishna Chandra Paudel, sir, we sincerely value your ready acceptance to co-organize the event, and we deeply appreciate your continuous support and guidance, or also support of your team which worked with us throughout the conference preparation. To the honorable members of parliament from the regional member countries, chairs, speakers and delegates, a big, big thank you. To the media from Nepal and other regional member countries for not only continuously covering the conference, since the day we announced, 6 months ago we announced this conference, and since then they have covered it regularly, but also making sure that we will be reaching to most important stakeholders, that is people of our country. So that's what media will be doing. To the conference supporters and our co-donors, a heartfelt thank for your support and for your confidence in our work. to the ICIMOD management in putting faith in the team of Regional Program on Adaptation to Change to let us organize the ICIMOD annual flagship event in the second consecutive year. It has been deeply inspiring but challenging to organize this conference. Finally, an event of this magnitude cannot be organized overnight. Therefore, last but definitely not the least, to the Regional Program Manager of Adaptation to Change and all my colleagues who have made this possible through over 6 months of tireless efforts, you sincerely deserve a big thank you and big round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agrawal, for the comprehensive vote of thanks. The organizations and individuals involved in the preparation of the conference deserve the due acknowledgement stated. We appreciate the support from our partners. Mr. Agrawal, your role as the chief architect of this international conference has been much appreciated. A sincere gratitude to you and your team for the efforts put in the preparation and in organizing this conference. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, representatives of partner organizations of ICIMOD, media friends, ICIMOD colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we now proceed to the end of the inaugural program.